everyone. My name is Cameron Cowan. I'm host of the Cameron Cowan Show. Thank you so much for stopping by. This video is about Muslim writer Reza Aslan, whose book I actually have right here. It's called Zealot: The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. And the reason why I'm talking about him, his book is really fascinating, I recommend, is that I recently watched a video by a fellow named David Pakman. Now, the David Pakman Show is very similar to this show. I have not had him on yet. I intend to one of these days. I like what he does, and we oftentimes are synergistic. I share his videos. And he recorded a series of videos complaining about Reza Aslan because he has made kind of a name for himself talking about the Middle East and talking about politics in the Middle East and defending Muslims and kind of countering this anti-Muslim rhetoric. All this sort of thing. David's problems are mostly have to do with his credentials. He talks a lot about being a religious studies scholar and all this type of thing, and he doesn't have any formal training in religious studies. That's true. In fact, his dissertation was not on anything religious, but he has certainly, in my mind, especially with the publishing of this book, made a quite scholarly study of world religions, including Islam. And what I don't really understand, and I guess I would be interested to see what David would say to this, even though I've watched three YouTube videos about it, is what the problem is with Reza Aslan. I think Islam needs to be defended to some greater or lesser degree. I think Islam, it's essential in my mind, because I don't believe most Muslims are out for American blood. I don't believe most Muslims are out for jihad. I don't even think most Muslims are really that against Jewish people. I think there are ideologues, there are demagogues, there are people who are invested in that, but your average Muslim person on the street could not more or less care. Now, obviously, we as Americans, thanks to drone strikes, ongoing wars, and a whole host of other problems, aren't exactly ranking very high on the popularity list, but at the end of the day, when people want a safe place to go, they still come here because they know they have certain rights and privileges, and they know that there's a certain amount of respect that is involved. And I think that is important. That is what matters, and that's what really is important at the end of the day. So I don't really quite understand David's bone to pick with Reza Aslan, but I can say I've been reading his book Zealot. I'm about halfway through, and I am really impressed by his historical analysis. He creates the world where Jesus was. He does a really good job of analyzing the history behind what the Romans were doing there, how that all came to be, all this sort of thing. I don't care if he doesn't necessarily have a particular credential in religious studies. He has definitely done the good job of the scholarship required to make, in my mind, his work incredibly valuable to a discussion of religion. So I would say to David, I would get past the fact that Reza Aslan isn't a strict religious studies scholar. I would get past all of that. I would really focus on what has he written, what has he done, what has he studied, and I would focus, if you have a problem with his defense of Islam, then I would approach that, and I would come up with arguments. I would do your own scholarship and find your own experts and talk about where are the holes in his argument, rather than going after his credentials or his scholarship. He does have a PhD. They don't just give those out to anybody. It's a lot of work to earn those. There's a lot of parts that go into that. That's part of the reason why some of us don't pursue that course of study. There's a lot that goes into that. So there's a lot of things to consider in the course of arguing with Reza Aslan. And I would say rather than, just complaining about him, I would get busy poking holes in arguments. If you do really think Islam is a religion of war and not of peace, I would bring out your experts, bring out your Quran, and make those arguments. But if you don't like what Reza Aslan says, then just say that. Just say, I don't like what he says. I don't like the fact that he is defending Islam. I don't like the fact that he goes on national television and refutes crazy claims and ideas, or even criticizes those who want to bogart Islam. That, in my mind, is a much stronger argument than just simply trying to say, well, he's not very credentialed, therefore his arguments don't matter. Because I'm not a religious studies person, and I could get on national television and talk about the same thing if I wrote a book like what Mr. Aslan has produced here. So, like I said, I don't understand it. I think Reza Aslan is an important contributor, and certainly considering Islam is a very important and contentious issue right now, I think it is vital that we have these conversations and that we really separate the ideologues and the demagogues from the real people, and we separate what is true and what is manufactured myth when it comes to a religion that represents 1 billion people and is at the center of so much political turmoil right now. And I think it's very dangerous to start painting things with broad brushes just because it serves an agenda or you don't like what someone got their PhD in. I just think these are all things to consider. So I would throw it back to David. I would say make better arguments, and I hope people found this helpful. I'm going to link to some Reza Aslan videos in my description box. Like I said, I am reading Zealot right now, his first book, and so I would highly recommend, if you haven't, please do, especially if you want to learn more about the real historical Jesus and where he was, what he did, all this sort of thing. I don't think there's better reading on the subject. So you can catch up with me. We have a new Twitter account. I'm moving. My personal Twitter at Cameron Cowan is still existent, but don't worry. If you want updates on the show, fresh videos, and the news feed, I have a curated news feed. That all is moved over to the Cameron C Show. So the Cameron C Show. On Twitter, we're still on Facebook, facebook.com/The Cameron Cowan Show, and CameronCowan.tumblr.com. And for all the news you need to know, in 10 minutes or less, and why you should care about it, catch me here every Monday and Friday on YouTube, and every Saturday on the podcast. We'll see you soon now. Bye-bye.